Months after actor Matthew Perry's death, details about the beloved actor's will have emerged. Now, according to legal documents, it indicates that the majority of the late actor's belongings will be placed in a trust, which Perry created back in 2009. In light of all of this, we wanted to help you learn more about estate planning. And to break it all down for us this morning is attorney Jeffrey Katz. Jeffrey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's begin with why it's so crucially important to do that, to have all your affairs in order.
So, Perry, at the time of his death, had approximately $120 million in total assets. Only $1.5 million of that is going to actually pass through the public probate process. The balance believed to have been placed into the trust that he established shortly before his death. Now, he originally did draft a will in 2009, but then later updated his planning to include a trust to keep the bulk of the assets out of probate, probate being a public process, which exposes the assets to public scrutiny and also, shows folks who's getting the money, when they're getting it, and how it's being distributed.
Talk more about the difference between the two, a trust and a will.
Sure, absolutely. So, you can pass assets using either vehicle. They're both, certainly appropriate ways to pass the assets. Wills are public documents. Trusts are not. And so the advantage of using a trust is that it, again, shields the assets from public scrutiny and also avoids the probate process. Now, probate can be a time-intensive and also an expensive way of passing the assets. In most jurisdictions, probate fees are going to be tied to the size of the estate.
Can you break down, for those who are trying to get ahead of this and prepare, what they should take stock of in terms of inventory, assets, outstanding debts?
Yeah.
What does that process look like initially?
Absolutely. And so coming up with an estate plan in generally requires you to start off by just taking a look at what the assets are and then who are the beneficiaries. And so, we look at the assets, we look at all the assets, not just, things like your home, but also retirement accounts, life insurance, tangible personal property, automobiles, and then maybe any interest in real estate. Sometimes people have timeshares or campground interests, and so all of that, throw that into a bucket and think of that as as the assets that would be passed. Now, when we think of assets, we also think of what we call retirement assets, and so these are assets that we have accrued but are sitting in tax deferred status. And so those are called qualified accounts. We have our qualified and our non-qualified accounts. Both of those will make up the bulk of most people's estates. The qualified accounts are subject to taxes at the time of distribution. The non-qualified are not. But all of that combined, it would be the nature of the assets that would ultimately be distributed.
In setting up a trust, you also have to select a trustee. So how does that process work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to pick someone who has good values, who has good norms, whose values and norms mirror those of your own, and who's going to make good decisions with respect to how those assets are distributed. And so that can be a friend, it can be a family member, it can be a professional like a banker, a professional trustee, or it could be an attorney or an accountant. But someone that that's going to be there for you to help get those assets distributed and see this thing through to the termination of that trust.
Finally, is there a common mistake you see that people make, even when they think they have everything together in both respects?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the biggest challenges we see is people will go ahead and they'll do the drafting, but they won't actually go through the funding exercise. They won't actually update the beneficiary designations, identify who's getting the assets, or they'll have older, outdated funding designations made, where maybe they've named a prior spouse as the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, or they've named someone who's passed away. So all these will incur to defer or to extend the time that it takes to make distributions. The worst part is when folks actually draft a trust and they don't fund the trust. They end up going through probate, paying the probate fees, and then paying the trust fees as well. And so if you're going to go through that process, make sure you've gone ahead and implemented that planning by updating the beneficiary designations, so the folks who are supposed to get the money get what they're supposed to receive.
Keep it updated, and also get an attorney, if you need one. Jeffrey, thank you so much for that. I know we got a lot in there, but I think you did a good job of breaking down that comprehensive information. We appreciate it.
Thank you.